Hey guys, it's me, YayaDiamond. What's up, guys? We're having a great time here. We have an author on the show today, and I want to go ahead and show you his book because I thought it was I think it's just beautiful. I love the green. So we have Paul Downhour, and I hope I'm saying that right, or Downhour.
That
Um,
is correct.
See? Is it good? Yay! So he's here with his book called Crying Irish Eyes, his second edition. He also has his first book, and I want to welcome him to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm just so proud that you gave me the opportunity to meet all these wonderful people.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Now, I have to tell you that my last name on my father's side is McFerrin.
All right. Did you know that I think it's like 35 to 40% of the American people are Irish and have
Well,
Irish in their blood? And it all started back during the potato famine when
mm,
over 1 million people died in Ireland, and between 1.5 million and 2 million came to what they call the land of milk and honey. And that
wow.
was here. Uh, and this is where the big immigration from Irish had, and the people here hated the Irish because
Mm,
they would work not for they would work to be able to eat 1 day longer. That's all they could thought about, one more day.
yeah.
And it was they were treated badly when they came over, and even now, years later, there was signs: help wanted. No Irishmen need to apply. But these people were hard working. They were used to working in the fields, and they 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 worked very hard. They were good workers, and they really helped build this country to what it is today.
Yeah, the Irish and the blacks on the backs of those people and the and so many others. It's just, it was sad. It was definitely sad. And being Irish and black and a few other different things because of the heritage that blacks have here, it's very interesting to find out all of the different things and what makes me me. And I wanted to ask you really quick, what inspired you to write this story in the first place? I mean, what was it?
I saw a documentary on PBS years and years and more, many years ago about the potato famine and the Irish, and I kept that in my mind. And I actually wrote this on an MS DOS computer, and I researched the background for over 3.5 years. I
Mm,
wanted to make sure that the story itself was very realistic. In other words, it could actually have happened the way I describe it to my fictional characters,
mm-hmm.
and uh, it just seemed to flow once I got started on it, and I added some personal history on it, uh, and kind of
Wow.
made me feel a little closer to it. My
Now,
great grandfather was an 1840 miner that went looking for gold in California, and with his father, and one of the cabins he had, he rolled a rock up in front of the cabin as a step, and he didn't find any gold, and he got aggravated and left. Somebody else came to the same cabin, picked it up, didn't find any gold, got aggravated and hit that rock with a hammer, and it was full of gold.
oh my gosh.
So
Oh,
I've added that to it, along with a few other things.
wow. Wow. Now, are you Irish?
Very little Irish,
Mhm.
mostly German, English, Welsh, and Scottish.
Okay.
Little bit of Irish.
A little bit Irish. What did it feel like when, because I mean, even a little bit, even if you are like 5% or whatever the case may be, uh, what did that make you feel like knowing that a piece of you is part of that history? What was that like for you?
It made me feel like that's me.
Right.
I put myself in there. I mean, I was one of the characters in there, and it really gave me a closeness with the story itself.
Wow. Wow. And I know how you feel because like, we all look for our ancestors. We want to know our history. We want to know what it is that we went through. How did we get here? What happened? What did my ancestors go through? And you really, really, research this. What was the research like? I mean, did you study books? Did you go online? I mean, what was that like for you?
I wrote this back in the early 1990s.
Mm,
And that's before you had the internet
yeah.
like it is today. What I would do, I would look up stuff, and then I'd go to the library downtown Jacksonville, and they had books down in the basement. You could not check them out, but you could read them. So I would take a notepad down there, and I'd make little notes off of things that I read in the books,
Hmm.
and that I just wanted it to be accurate, and
Yeah.
uh, I just I like to see a story or read a book, and I would say, that could have actually happened. I
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I wanted to find out, how did you develop your characters? I mean, a lot of people say that there's characters developed on real characters, or they're developed on an idealistic way of where the characters should act and perform. What were your basis for your characters?
They just seem to come alive in my mind. I mean, I, I've actually written a couple of other manuscripts. I've got to do of another published book, but they, they just seem to come alive. I started writing, and all of a sudden, boom! I actually started writing this on a typewriter. This was before the internet,
Mhm.
and then I got on the computer, and uh, it was a DOS computer, and that's like I won't go all there, but it just the characters just sort of flowed when I
Mhm.
started writing. When I sat down at the keyboard, they
Mhm.
were there.
Wow. Wow. We'll have a few other questions. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Guys, don't you go anywhere. We have an amazing rest of interview with Mr. Paul Downhour and I Downhour, right?
That
Downhour.
is correct.
Ah,
Yes.
I love that. I like that. We're down in the hour. We're going to be going back with Paul. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
Are you ready to unlock God's plan for your life? In the Amazon #1 new release, From Iniquity to Equity, ministry leader, inspirational speaker, and author Ravine James shares her powerful journey from corporate success to kingdom purpose. This must-read and life-changing book combines spiritual wisdom and personal testimony to show how God can shift your life from trials to triumphs. Once a clinical scientist, author Ravine James now inspires others to build a God-centered life, one that's rooted in faith, prayer, and biblical principles. Whether you're facing personal struggles, seeking spiritual growth, or striving for a life of abundance, this must-read book will empower you to embrace your God-given potential and live a life overflowing with blessings. Available on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and Kindle Unlimited, as well as the author's website, ravinejames.com. Order your copy today and take that first step toward a life of purpose and prosperity. God is waiting to shift your story. From Iniquity to Equity, from author Ravine James. Order your copy today.
Today's episode is actually sponsored by Mr. Paul Downhour. So I just want to let you know. And the book today we're talking about is going to be Crying Irish Eyes. It is the second edition, and Paul Downhour is with us today. I want to go ahead and go back to him because we have so many different amazing questions to ask you tonight. And I'm just so thankful that you're here. Thank you so much for sponsoring this show today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, I do have I do have a question though. Like,
Okay.
the journey of your characters, were you on that journey with them? Like, did you feel like at one point they became real?
I actually, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I actually felt like that those were real people, and
Mm,
I was just telling their story as it was happening. Uh, and the interesting part, I actually went to the place in the book where all of a sudden they're in New York, and it stopped right there, and I didn't know where to go from that, and I slept on it for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, bang! It came to me where to go from there,
Mhm.
and it was whenever they were in New York. They went to Patty's pub, and uh, all of a sudden, where to go from there it went, and it flowed from there. And I believe that's around chapter 4. I don't remember exactly, but that's pretty early in the book.
Wow. How did you balance the good and the bad? I mean, how was that? Was and is there like a perfect balance in your eyes for these books?
I can't describe it. It just, like I said, it flowed. That one point I had the right, I guess you could say writer's block. I didn't know where to go, and all of a sudden, like I said, I slept on it, and I
Mm,
said, "That's what I'm going to do." And so I went from today, and I went way forward, another 30 years ahead or 40 years
wow.
ahead, and that's it really. And I really liked when I put it together. I liked the way that flowed, and
Mhm.
then we're kind of back and forth after that.
Wow. Is there like a parallel of your books about the Irish immigrants and everything they went through and the potatoes, all that stuff? Is there a flow where you could see that happening in today, or even a comparison or relevance of that story from the past being something that is kind of in comparison to what's going on today with immigrants?
This was actually written back in the 1990s, and I was not looking at any of the today events. I was researching what it was like back then,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wasn't connecting it. I know we've got some big immigration issues going on now,
Yeah.
and just like we had then. And if you read the story, it kind of parallels to some degree
There you
with
go.
what we got going on now.
Right.
But when I wrote this, we did not have any immigration issues
Mm,
like we do have today.
yeah.
Uh, these people in Ireland, there was over 1 million that died of starvation, and 1.5 to 2 million immigrated, most of them coming to this country. And the people that died in Ireland, they just died, and there was whole families died, and it's like they never existed, and
Mm.
there was nobody left behind that could bury them. So you can imagine the mess that they were having back then.
That's crazy. That is sad. You know, if you could explain your book, if you could explain to people exactly what it is you want them to take away from reading the book, or even now understanding what the book is about, what would you and how would you tell them?
It's a struggle to find a better life and a better world to live in. I would probably say that was the crux of it to begin with, and what people go through in life to try to have a better life.
Hmm. Nice. Wow. And you're so right. You're so right. So many people are struggling now to have a better life. And even
Right.
in those days back then in the 90s and before and previous before that, people were struggling and still struggling to have a good life. I think that's why people come over here. I think that's why we have an immigration issue, because people believe that the United States is a place to have a better life. You know, I'm looking at your book and I'm going, that's a part of us. You and I are from there in a little bitty tiny way. But but at the same time it's like, wow, what a struggle. What a history. If there's anything that I missed today, anything you want to say to the readers or the listeners today, I mean, what would that be? If I missed any.
The only Americans, true Americans we have are the natives,
Yeah.
what we call the Indians. That's the only true Americans. The other ones, we all came from somewhere,
Mhm.
and our relatives came from another country, and most of them, you can go back from uh, go back to Chris. Of course, Christopher Columbus was looking for gold, I think, but you can go back to the very beginning of immigration, and the reason they came to this country was for a better life.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for the slaves. I think we were okay before they came over here, before we were brought over here. But other than that, I mean, there were some Irish slaves that were brought over here too. And so it's a travesty on all fronts, I think. It wasn't good for the Indians. It wasn't good for the blacks. It wasn't always good for the Irish. It wasn't always good for the whites. You know, it was something that we all kind of ended up here. But I think that it is the land of opportunity. And I do think that your books are amazing books. I love what you've done. I love that you've researched everything and that you brought a little bit of me and you into the book. And I love that. Wow. I want to thank you so very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. You know, if there is anything you'd like to say to the listeners today, go right ahead and say it. And then thank you again so much for sponsoring this show today. Mr. Paul Downhour is the sponsor of this show today, and I want to thank you so much for being here.
Well, I want to thank all your listeners and everybody out there for watching. And you'll find this book interesting, intriguing. I guarantee you, it'll put you in tears in a couple of places, but it's going to leave you on a high note. In other words, you won't when you at the very end, it gives you a little good feeling inside. And I don't like a book or a story that leaves you burn out, but this will give you a good feeling towards the end. And I appreciate all your listeners. I appreciate the kindness, and I appreciate the uh, uh, all that we've done for us.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Downhour. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can find that book on Amazon. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the description box below. But you can always just go ahead, and we do have that QR code on the screen right now. And you can take the opportunity to actually see if you can get your phone out and scan that screen and check out the book for yourself. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to dare to be different. And until next time, guys, bye.